This concept quickly. If anyone in this room is looking for an instructor, a drill instructor, a sergeant or lieutenant to get you through this academy, get up and get out now. It's not going to happen. I'm not here to get you through the academy. That's not my function. It's not my job. My job is to place obstacles in front of you. It's your job to develop a process and how to get through those obstacles and move forward. My job is to make things uncomfortable. Discomfort promotes change, promotes better habits. From there, it's up to you whether you develop the self-discipline to sustain those habits moving forward. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
If you're looking from the outside, for outside factors to get you through this academy, do not come back on the 8th. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon and welcome to Fido Talk with Dave Thompson. On today's episode, we're going to jump into emotions in leadership. And this subject was born out of my career, my career path, the industry that I'm in right now. Having an opportunity to kind of sit back and observe, listen, and just take in some approaches and the environment in which we work in. And on top of that, one particular instance where somebody was told to stop being emotional or don't let anyone see your emotions. So on that note, let's just jump right into this episode. I think it'll be a good one. When we talk about emotions, I will say this. I am probably, historically, in my own personal life, probably one of the most emotionally weak people there is. I'm willing to bet I came out of the womb full of emotion. But thanks to life experience, different situations, I've learned that not being able to mitigate, manage, and harness emotions is very bad, right? It's not good to not be able to handle your emotions efficiently and effectively. So just for me, and one caveat to all this, I'm not a doctor. This is not professional psychological advice or anything like that. Not even close. It's just me sharing some experiences and me sharing some approaches in developing your own process to handle these things. At the end of the day, there's that old saying, there's two wolves that live within us, right? One being the rational, the very intentional, cerebral side of oneself. And then the other is the irrational, the emotional, the fly off the handle, the react versus respond. And the question that was presented was, which side wins? And the answer was, whichever side you feed. At the end of the day, there is 6 basic human emotions. And I fully understand that modern psychology and all that has broken it down into 23 different sub-emotions or subcategories and so forth and so on. I fully understand that. What I am not is intelligent, have the capacity enough to run down each and every rabbit hole when it comes to that. So I stick to 6 basic human emotions. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a 1 in 6 chance of being any one of those. 1 in 6 chance of being happy, being angry, sad, whatever it may be. A 1 in 6 chance. Now, from there, it's up to me whether I choose to stay in that emotion or not, right? That's what it is. It's up to me. When we start bringing that into a professional workplace or a work environment, and we are either an influential teammate, influential leader, an appointed leader, junior leader, what have you, one thing we really need to be worried and wary of is, or aware of, I should say, is our emotions. And for whatever reason, we can debate the reasons all day long, right? As to how we societally, in industry-wide or as a nation, have got to this side of the pendulum where everything's such an emotional trigger. That being set aside, it's really irrelevant, because when you get into industries that are high pressure, where the situations really require a response, a non-emotional, cerebral, intentional, rational response, there's only two ways you can go, right? And I've said it before, we can react or we can respond. So let's take the side right now of the irrational emotional response. One thing we really need to understand is the circumstances, situations aren't going to change as a result of your emotions, right? No matter how many emotions you throw at them, the situation's going to be the situation, right? And we're not, as human beings, you're not going to stop an emotion. You're not. If something sets you in a path of being angry, you're going to be angry. You're going to feel that. Like, those feelings aren't something that you have the ability to stop completely. To recognize that and to accept that is a tremendous part of the process. We, in my particular industry, very alpha-based. I kind of circle back to this a lot, right? The A-type personality. We all get hung up on the physically tough side of it. We're tough guys. And girls. We can handle ourselves. We can pound and ground and smash and all this other crap. And that is crap, right? We can go to the weight room and throw around weights and, hit the heavy bag. We can do all that shit. But we don't have enough emotional strength and mental toughness to keep our emotions in check. We just don't. So as the influential leader, as the junior leader, or, a senior leader, what do we do to be more effective as far as dealing with an emotional subordinate or somebody who's emotionally charged, who's works for us, or we are in charge of. Like, what do we do? How do we approach this, right? Well, first and foremost, you have to lead yourself, right? So if you're an emotionally charged person and you're telling someone else, hey, you got to check your emotions. You got, you're flying off the handle. When in fact that, you're an emotional firecracker yourself. That's something. That's something that you need to work on. So to counsel somebody, to sit down with them and say, hey, emotionally, you need to tighten things up, right? You can't fly off the handle. You can't show your anger. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that it is at all. I am fully on board with the cerebral approach. I'm fully on board with the rational, logical, planned out, methodical approach. Void of emotion and feelings, ideally, right? Ideally, is it plausible? Is it possible? I'm not so sure. When we do that and just cut ties there, right? If we counsel somebody and just say, you need to stop being emotional, and then that's it, that's a problem, right? That approach fosters self-consciousness, nervousness, hesitation, and especially hesitation in decision-making moving forward. That doesn't do shit for anybody. How? Right? So let's think about it operationally. If we tell somebody as a leader, we need to complete A, B, or C, right? This is my intent. I need you to do A, B, and C. And this is why we need to do A, B, and C, right? Now let's come up with a plan on how we're going to accomplish A, B, and C. That's the same with the emotional side of things, right? You wouldn't tell someone to get in shape and not have some sort of a workout plan, right? That's the same with emotional stability, right? An emotional approach to, or getting rid of an emotional approach, right? So what do? We throw out that popular mantra these days of, stop getting worked up over X, Y, and Z, right? Stop giving a shit what people think. Okay. All right. Yeah, just stop, just like that. Well, human beings don't work that way. It just doesn't work like that. We do care. Like, out of all the animal species on the fucking planet, we have feelings. We have emotions. You don't just stop them. It's not that easy. It isn't. And if you have say someone's 25 to 30 years old, 25 to 30 years of being emotional, it just doesn't stop. But how do you do it? What are some resources? What are some approaches and processes that people can use? If you listen to Gary John Bishop, who is a human nature expert, and I use that in air quotations because I'm not a big fan of that term, but he's got some incredible insights on human nature. People do care. You care about what people think. It's what you do or do not do in spite of what people think, people say to you, their opinion of you and or a situation. They do care. What are your priorities? right? In leadership, it's going to be the mission over everything, then the team, then you. That's as simple and most effective as it could possibly get, right? So taking stock of your emotions is key. When you have never trained in or under high pressure, it's very difficult to develop that skill set, right? You might not have the understanding of physiologically how the body works and how those emotions come about, especially when it comes to elevated heart rate and your body's response to it, right? And initially it's a fear. Can you mitigate that? Well, of course you can. You can mitigate it by physically decreasing your heart rate, intentionally decreasing your heart rate, but it only comes through high pressure training. So as leaders are trainers, right? Leaders are constant trainers and constant reinforcers and instructors and those type of things. It might not be an appointed position, but it's certainly an assumed role under leadership. It's a subcategory. Remember, I've talked about it a bunch of times. Leadership is an incredibly complex subject, an incredibly complex genre. But there are very simple approaches to these complex subjects in subcategories in human nature and things like that. They're very simple approaches, one bite at the apple at a time, right? Developing training, high pressure training to get somebody through that. Showing people the mindfulness side of things, which is incredibly beneficial. My personal advice or direction I would send someone in for just beginning, the absolute beginning of this journey or building a skill set of mitigating and managing your emotions would be the Stoics. Again, these pendulum swings have been going on throughout all of history, since the beginning of time. And there are incredible writings and incredible lessons learned throughout history. And incredible advice and exercises to mitigate these things moving forward. But it's a process. And just as like there's a process to develop your body physically, there is a process to develop your emotions, your emotional side of things, your mental side of things. And that requires work, just as it does on the physical side of things. It requires time and effort, whether it's, like I said, studying the Stoics in extracting lessons from them, or researching mindfulness and meditation and things that you need to kind of structure and organize your thoughts and emotions and how to process them. Again, you're not ever going to completely get rid of them. It's not, and you need them, right? Like, there is a use for them. There's a time and a place for them, for sure, 100%. You're never going to walk around like a robot, right? It's not going to happen. However, if you go to the opposite end of the spectrum and you approach everything, let's just say with anger, right? You're an angry fuck, and all you do is run on anger and emotion, or the emotion of anger, I should say, right? If that's all you do, and you're angry at a person in a situation, there's that saying that's just like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's a fool's errand. There's nothing from an emotional standpoint. If you throw emotion at a person, a situation, a circumstance, it's not going to change that. Once again, it's not going to change that. But what it will do, for sure, if you don't have a process to mitigate and manage it, it'll eat away at you. Because there's no stopping it once it gets going, until it runs its course. And then you're just starting the cycle all over again. And the physiological damage, the accumulative damage over time, is incredibly detrimental. Incredibly detrimental. I implore you, if you're listening, to go ahead and really dive into that. Especially if you're in a high pressure work environment or industry. And it doesn't necessarily have to be first responder or anything that you deem to be high pressure. My perspective and thoughts in what I consider high pressure are going to be different than a lot of other people's. So whatever you deem to be high pressure. But the emotional approach and the emotions that come with a certain industry or leading, they're going to be there because you're leading human beings. With human beings come fucking emotions and feelings. And to deal with it with the approach of, hey, just get rid of that shit, is incredibly ineffective. It's not sustainable. And you're going to be dealing with it for a long fucking time. And if you're in a position where you can make that call and develop a health and wellness program or any type of resource for the people in your charge to use, I implore you to do so, or to gather those resources and offer them up. I am willing to bet that the return on investment is going to be invaluable for your team and or organization moving forward. As individuals, if it's not happening at a higher level, take that fucking responsibility on yourself, right? It might not be your fault. We've talked about this before. Shit might not be your fault. It might not be your fault that you don't know how to manage or mitigate or rein in your emotions. It might not be your fault, but it's surely your fucking responsibility to do so, especially if you want to be the most effective, productive member of your team. If you want to be the strongest link in your team, being physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually strong is the way to go. You can't just go to the fucking gym and expect to be the strongest link in that team. You can't just go to church or the temple or the mosque or whatever your denomination or spirituality might be and ignore the other aspects of being, mind, body, spirit, and expect to be the strongest member of the team. They do gel into each other, right? They do overlap into each other. The physical, the spiritual, the mental. They do help one another, but you have to really dig into it. And from my perspective, from my observations, especially in my industry, we are really, really taking a dive down that rabbit hole and becoming emotionally weak. Collectively, we are becoming emotionally weak. It's something to really, really consider. It's something to really look into. And if you have been told, hey, shit can those emotions, right? And I've lived by that mantra, right? Put your fucking feelings in a jar and get the mission done. And that, in certain circumstances, that has served me well, but certainly not on the civilian side, right? Not on the civilian side. Certainly not always. I'll step back from that a little bit. In certain circumstances, right? Put your feelings aside. But that's temporary. The feelings and emotions that are on that shelf, those jars have to be opened and dealt with, right? Those backpacks, have to be emptied. Those rocks have to come out of the backpack and they have to be unpacked and they have to be dealt with. They have to be. Without a process, they can't be. Develop a process. Look into the Stoics. Look into mindfulness, being aware. It's not unmanly. It's not uncool. Not at all. Not even a little bit. It's a path. It's developing a skill set that will pay dividends in your career, in your longevity, in your effectiveness, in your approach to your professional life, your personal life, your spiritual life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do not see a downfall in exercising emotionally, mental health, spiritually, just as much as I don't see a downside in exercising physically. I think they go hand in hand. So as leaders, do not, please, I implore you, do not ignore the emotional side of things. And don't sweep that shit under the rug. Do not. I hate to come off like that with the do not. I would advise to not just tell somebody to not be fucking emotional. Don't get angry. Don't be sad. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then just leave it at that. If people don't know, they need the resources. They might need remediation training. They might need something. They definitely need those things in order to develop into a more emotionally stable, maybe a more cerebral, intentional, purposeful, rational subordinate, right? And that's kind of what we're looking for. And that's what I have for today. I appreciate everyone listening up. As kind of choppy and around the way and kind of around the world as this was today, I personally think it's one of the most important subcategories of leadership that there is. Again, especially in anyone in any type of high pressure first responder or whatever type of high pressure industry you're in. I think it's incredibly important and very much overlooked. So, again, take care of your emotions, understand them, develop your own process and your own skill set to deal with them. Otherwise, they're definitely going to fucking deal with you. I appreciate you guys listening. We'll catch you on the next one. I want to thank everyone for listening to this week's episode of Fido Talk with Dave Thompson. If you would, please subscribe and review. It helps a lot. Share the word with your friends and family. Have them check it out and provide some feedback. We'd love to hear it. Check us out at barebonesleadership.com for the latest blog and different perspectives on everything leadership. Follow us on the gram and on our newly updated Facebook page. Share your comments, your thoughts, your reviews. Any and all feedback is always welcome. And don't forget, keep kicking those fucking doors in, and as always, Fido. I appreciate you guys listening. Take care, and see you next time.